In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
I'm Max.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to WoT the Adaptation. We're reviewing tonight The Expanse, Episode 2. But we have a guest, Leah. Leah, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you guys?
You're doing great. Leah comes to us from Threefold Talk over on Melchior Talk's YouTube channel. Would you like to tell us about your channel and about yourself?
So it's a Wheel of Time based show. It's me and my 4 co-hosts, and the 4 ladies. We all role play IEL. We all kind of associate with the IEL for better for worse in real life. And then Rob from Melchior Talks is our token wetlander and kind of deals with us. But we have a variety of topics that we talk about. It's a little different each week. And we just have a lot of fun. So we love our foldies, is what we call our fans. And so Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on Rob's YouTube channel. So
Melchior Talks.
Yeah,
it is one of the funniest live streams I watch every week. So by far.
It's controlled chaos most of the time.
Yes, barely controlled chaos.
Barely.
Especially when chat gets involved.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I think it would be a completely different show if we didn't have all the foldies in live. And it's always a good time.
Definitely. So here we are, ready to start talking about The Big Empty, written by Mark Fergus and Hank Otsby, and directed by Terry McDonough. It continues adapting Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, which some of you may recall is the pen name for the writing duo of Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. It first made its first American premiere December 15th, 2015 on the Sci-Fi Channel. So, what did you guys think of this particular episode?
I mean, I loved all the episodes, so they're
Right.
so good, and they are similar and different to the books, but yeah, and I've actually been doing a rewatch recently. I occasionally teenage sit for one of my friends, and her daughter had never seen them, so the week I was watching her, we binge watched the first 2 seasons together, and now I've just been like binge watching them all because why not?
I've been trying to hold back and just watch one episode at a time, but last week I broke down and I watched the entire season. And then I've just been avoiding starting season 2 because I do not want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, that's hard.
I definitely liked episode 2 more than 1 from rewatching it. It seemed like less of the romance drama and more like tension drama, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of tension, a lot of conflict, inter-crew conflict too, and that's intra-crew, which definitely more than there is in the books.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one of the things I actually wasn't my particular favorite thing about the series, especially the early series versus the books. And I don't know if you want to start getting into that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and I think I understand the reason why they did it for people who hadn't read the books, like that personal drama is something that draws people into the show. And in the books, they, the communication is very clear. So like they knew that they were sending out the beacon and they knew they were going to be late. But in the show, it was all a secret. And I think they just did that to draw in the viewers more. So having that character drama, like, oh, are they going to find out it was Jim or,
Well, so our first topic is, what were the changes from the source material in the show that you liked or even didn't like?
Yeah, that's what, like, I didn't mind it. It wasn't my favorite. Like I liked the book so much and how tight knit the crew that eventually becomes the crew of the Rosie, and I loved how just they were from the beginning a family unit. And I actually watched the TV show first, not realizing there were books.
Me too.
So and I don't think I even associated that because I watched, I think like it was the first 4 seasons and then started reading the books. And by then I had already forgotten that there was all this early drama. So when I went back the next time before the last season, the most recent,
Right.
the final season came out, it was like, oh, huh. Of course, it was all just so jumbled up in my head. I couldn't like separate what was in the books and what was in the show. So I've been trying to much more deliberately go through.
Been there, done that.
It had been a while from the time I read or watched season 1 to the time I read season 1. I'm talking several years because I only first read this last year.
Okay.
So, and I watched season 1 when it first aired on Sci-Fi Channel. So it's been a long time.
Nice.
And so when I listened to it, I didn't quite remember at season 1 so as much. So when I rewatched season 1 just recently, I was like, oh, I didn't realize. Okay, wow, this, and it jumped out at me, a lot of the differences, because it's like, oh, okay. 'Cause I remembered it being, hearing that it's very accurate, and it really is. It's of the 3 shows we've talked about now. We've talked about Wheel of Time season 1, seasons 1 and 2 of The Witcher, and now we're talking season 1 of this. I think this is the most accurate to the books of the adaptations we're talking about yet. In this episode, there's some changes that I like, some I don't like. At first, I didn't like, the extra strife amongst the crew. I thought it was unnecessary, but then I thought about it, and it's like, no, because then there really isn't going to be that much strife at all, and this is a TV show, and there needs to be conflict and drama,
Exactly.
and conflict, drama, or romance, and well, they're not doing a romance yet, so it made sense that they had to add, do something, and the best way to do it is just these little things. And also, it also made Dominic Tipper stand out, in her role as Naomi, with showing Naomi for the badassness that she is and always has been.
Yeah.
Without it, yes, she could have still been a badass by being the XO, and making Holden, snapping him into shape. But I see why they did it this way, and so I ended up liking it. Now I know it's mostly from the books, but I love all of Christian Avarasala's stuff in season 1 because you can't not have her. I mean, I can't imagine season 1 working without this storyline without her. And there's a reason that she's so awesome.
Oh yeah. And it gives a lot of pulling her forward. I feel like it gives a lot of that political context that you don't necessarily, like you kind of pick it up in all the not the dialogue, the in between the dialogue in the book, but that would be so difficult to do if you hadn't pulled in her character so early. You'd really only have pretty much just the Belter view, because you and then through her eyes you see the Earth Martian political dynamic. It's not even really a conflict at that point, but just the tension between those 2 planets.
Like they've got a joint navy, if I remember correctly.
They do.
In the book. I don't remember it ever being talked about on the show, but
I think in the show they kind of emphasized more that there was like a loose civil war that had happened in some of her generation's lifetime. Some of the admirals and the generals all talk about these as you get through the series, the TV show series, these like nebulous battles that so and so had been in, or the battle of da 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 da, and you youngins don't remember that. So there was some, like, again, I think civil war is too strong of a term, but there was definitely a contention, and they have formed their independent. So it's not like
Okay.
Yeah, so like I can't even think of a IRL. Maybe like the United Nations these days, actually. So it's all independent militaries, but then it's like if the United Nations actually went to war with each other,
Right.
like, nope, we're just separate entities now. So
so for me, I had two changes I liked and one I didn't quite like as much. So I'm pretty sure in the book, but I could be entirely wrong. But I don't think that the ship they're on, their communication had issues like they talked about.
No, that wasn't
And
the
like,
problem with the night.
yeah, and like even if it was there, they would have skipped the chapter and went back to it kind of thing, because that's how that, like, they had a lot of time skips between chapters. And like I like that because it kind of showed the tension that I was talking about earlier, the conflict. And I really did like the crew conflict in this episode.
Yeah.
Some parts I didn't like as much, but I'm a big fan of Amos, as you can see.
Murder Snuggles.
I love him so much.
Yeah.
He's the crew. I've mentioned this around the place before, but the crew on set called him Murder Snuggles.
It's so accurate.
Isn't it?
So like in the book, you kind of get this barely sense of what Amos is like until the latter half of the first book, where he basically says like, Miller and I are alike. We'll both just shoot a guy in the head and not feel anything.
Right.
And we find out now that that's what he's kind of like.
So that's one thing I didn't like about the episode, that they spelled it out. I would rather have seen that and picked up on it through bits and pieces of writing, but mostly the acting. You know, and we know Wes Chatham's got the acting chops for it. He actually does this along, you know, the rest of the series, but I don't think we needed it spelled out for us in the second episode. You know, that Amos has issues.
See, I actually like that part of them just kind of speeding that along, so we get to see his character and actually build it up throughout the season instead of just like building up the last two episodes. See, the other part I had for a like was when we very first scene where we have Miller, he has that whole shower issue, and then the water stops.
Yeah.
And that kind of sets up towards the theme question later of resource scarcity. And that's a big thing. And there's even a story in the book where he's talking about, you know, back in the day, someone stole water and we spaced it, dude. And they kind of changed his story by
the specific story in the book is someone failed to scrub the air scrubbers.
Yeah.
And then the guy got spaced. And that harkens back to the story we saw last week where he tumbled the guy who played Death on Supernatural for a bribe and then threw the guy in an airlock later because his air scrubbers crapped out.
Okay. But
so,
like,
yeah.
I think they were trying to make him more sympathetic by not just killing that guy for stealing the water.
Right.
Because in the book, he would have flat out just spaced him.
Oh, yeah. They were much more wild, wild west style law. Rule law.
Moving to the next topic, does Glenn have a favorite scene?
Well, and so there was one
Okay.
change that I just didn't understand, and I didn't, it just didn't add to the show at all, was changing in the Canterbury, the top three people. So the captain was still the captain. In the Kidden things, I didn't get that. They explained it later. I don't know why that was necessary, but that's kind of nebulous. The whole thing with the freaking XO, like, and just going crazy, and it, you know, Holden was the XO in the books, and I just don't see what that added. There wasn't anything later where they explained why he went crazy. It didn't add anything to the rest of the show. So it was just one of those, just like every time I see it, I'm like, why?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about that last episode. I kind of talked about that last episode where there was a little tiny scene in the first book where he mentioned that the older Earth people had a harder time dealing with coming out or going into speed and going down and all that fun stuff.
Hmm.
Or even older belters, like just getting older age. Like it took the commander a lot longer to wake up from the injection stuff.
Hmm.
Okay.
Well, and if they had like it just doesn't
Mhm.
really get explained like that in the show. Like it never comes up again. They're not like, oh yeah, like that old XO we had, or ha ha ha, like you old people. It's just there's no allusions back to it. So
Right.
there's just such a big change.
Yeah, I didn't like that change of having
Yeah.
not only that, but making Holden the only acting XO and being so against his will. The characterization they've done so far of James Holden is not something I like in these first 2 episodes. They've made him less likable with his crew by making him more likable with the audience with the whole calling in the distress signal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's making him the asshole. Even though we know, the viewer hopefully would,
Yeah.
even though the viewer would hopefully see it as doing the right thing, he's still the one who's being the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or everybody else that's on the crew is the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So there you don't like 4 of your 5, main cast, all of a sudden. I didn't care for that. What else? I can't think of the other one. There was another one. That'll come to me, but I brain farted. It happens.
So if no one else had any things about changes liked or disliked or how they affected the plot,
Not really.
the next topic, Glenn, what was your favorite scene from this episode?
Well, I have to say it's got to probably be Kamal's air crapping out. That whole crisis over his oxygen, and ending with Shed sharing the the air with him, and then Shed being passed out, and Holden bringing him back. Probably that sequence was my favorite. I can tell you with 2 words, eating mushroom is my least favorite scene. I hate mushrooms.
I love mushrooms.
The only mushrooms I like are the ones that make me see things. So, but yeah, I don't eat fungus, and watching that guy just break it off, and I'm like, so other than that, I didn't have anything I disliked or hated, but I did really like that with the oxygen deprivation, the hypoxia or whatever. So,
How about you, Leia?
That's just hard. I don't know if there's one particular scene that I liked over the others, because I think they all just went together. I think the series of scenes I like the most is the future crew of the Rosi. Like I like their plot line a little bit more in these early episodes. I love seeing Sirius Station. And especially now that I've read the books a couple of times, like I can pick out more. Like it took me the longest time to not realize they were space stations, and that they're actual they were built on these like huge rock formations. And so like understanding that now, and then seeing the details that got put in, that was a little bit more enjoyable this past listen through. But that early Miller plot, or his early story, while it's important, I'm like, okay, next.
I really enjoyed Miller this episode, though. None of his stuff is where I would put as my favorite, but
Yeah.
I did enjoy his stuff.
I do love it, and so that's why I said it's hard, because it's not like I didn't have a least favorite, and then again the scene, like I don't have a favorite scene per se or a least favorite,
Right.
so it's more like the point of views that I prefer over the others. But just like Wheel of Time, you prefer certain characters, other characters.
Well, last week, so last recording we did on this, I had mentioned that in the books, I couldn't get past the Miller episodes or chapters fast enough because I did not like them at all. until like the last quarter of the book, where it's like, okay, I want to read Miller's chapter. Screw Holden. I want to read what's going on with this stuff.
I want to read more of the crazy guy. Spoiler.
Especially when he's, as you said, spoiler. Especially when he's on whatever that
Eros.
Ganymede, Eros.
Eros.
I'm suck at names here.
I'm with
He's
you.
on Eros speeding through the solar system. That was like, what the hell? The scene I actually enjoyed the most in this episode was pretty much the one where Amos is on the spacewalk with Holden, and he's like, "I could just take your helmet off."
Smash you upside the head.
Yeah. I just loved his like coldness about it, and just going back to work like nothing happened.
Pass me the wrench. Or pass me the drill.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed that scene of.
And it was a good scene. It's a change I didn't like though.
Well, it gets back to that, like the animosity that there is between these characters that didn't exist in the book. So in the books, they're like, they know they're in a shitty situation,
right?
And they just have to get through it. And actually, this part didn't even happen in the books.
No, they didn't have radio problems.
Yeah, like they were just really far out. So and I did actually like that change, the drama that added, because being adrift for several weeks, that's just doesn't
13 days is in the book. I just listened to it. It was going to be a 13 days from the time they were given the word from the Donager. They were on their way. It's like, ooh, they need to skip that time period on the show.
That is one thing they don't do really well in the show, is show the time gap as much.
See,
everything in the show feels pretty instantaneous.
Yeah, I wish more shows would put like a time chiron up, saying how much time or what the date and time is,
Didn't they do that in Alien?
I don't know, maybe, but not enough movies and shows do it. I mean, there are some that do, but
yeah, and that would be perfect, just because you almost think like things are just happening so quickly, and that's not necessarily true. And they do allude to it a little bit, but it's very subtle in the dialogue. They're like, oh, this event was 3 weeks ago. And so you have to mentally translate that something that just happened 5-10 minutes ago was 3 weeks ago. It's really subtle. It's just hard. Short of putting up that like time, which people don't pay attention to when it comes up. They're like, oh, there's numbers.
And honestly, it's the same issue that Wheel of Time had too, is like we didn't really get an idea of what the time gap was.
Yeah, except that one time where it said a month later.
Yeah, that's it.
If you caught it.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica had the best one ever, though. The camera pulls in on somebody, looks at the top of their head, and then it starts backing out. And it didn't seem like it had switched. It just literally started backing out, and this is 1 year later. And it's a different set. The guy's wearing a different outfit as he lifts his head up off the desk. It was just like,
yeah, they all look different.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was my favorite time jump in all of television.
The scene I hated the most, like, I'd say there's two parts on it. It's like, one is like the very beginning of the episode. It just starts with a talk about something with coffee, and it's very abrupt and like, what the hell? There wasn't even like a 5-second gap or just right into first word. Like, could miss it very easy, and that coffee just sounds nasty.
It's actually, I looked it up. It's
terrible.
I looked it up. It's something that gets done, and it boils down to, it's a real thing. And it's apparently a scene like that has been in other shows and movies.
Well, I mean, just because people put butter in coffee doesn't mean it tastes good. So
I actually do that, and it does taste good. I like it.
See, I've heard it tastes good that way. It's like putting salt in your coffee, because a lot of what it is that the salt that you're breaking up there, and so it causes the same reaction in the coffee. But yeah, I looked it up, and that's a real thing.
I don't doubt it. It just sounds bad. The other part is I wasn't a big fan of the whole Earth sequence of events. Like, I love the actress down there.
Yeah.
Everything she does is awesome, but it's like, I just was not a fan of that whole sequence. it almost felt like if they took out some of these random scenes, we could have been, an episode 2 ahead by now.
Maybe.
Like, maybe we have already been on the, spoiler for next episode, the Martian ship, and on its way to the Roci. Had we skipped some of these scenes that weren't really necessary, but kind of added, but
I don't
didn't.
think any of this stuff. What with Avarasala was not unnecessary, in particular. Like,
Well, more for like the Holden Miller plot line of like from the books.
oh, okay, so
Adding her, like, it stretches the episodes out, which isn't necessarily bad.
right.
Because like
I did like how because it gives a little bit more context to the larger, I don't want to say universe because it's not quite universe yet, but like the whole solar system wide context. And then I did like, again, not to jump to you guys' next show, like the next episode, but I did like that all the Doninger stuff was pretty much all together.
Yeah.
So, and that made sense that was one continuous episode. So,
it's just like a personal preference. I didn't really care for the politics. Like, I don't have any vested interest in these politics on Earth right now. It's just like they're not as interesting as the plot lines going on with Holden and Miller.
The only thing with Christian that I didn't like was the kind of conversations they were having out in the open in that lobby of that building, where just anybody could overhear and hear them talking.
Like you should probably go to a skiff or something.
Yeah, some classified shit you're talking about there, I'm sure. Maybe don't talk about it in public.
But shows and movies always have problems with that. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like sometimes I just wish I'd condense those scenes a little more, stretch out other things a little more. But this is what we got, and I do like it. Like the first episode wasn't my favorite, and this was definitely an improvement upon that. When the season first came out, I had a really hard time finishing this season 1 of Expanse.
Okay.
Interesting.
It took me I watched like 4 episodes, and it took like 6 months before finishing the series, and then I binged the whole series.
Yeah, it'll do that to you.
Our next topic, I believe, favorite actor, or worst actor in the episode.
So hard.
Well, I'll start while she's going. First, Dominic Tipper as Naomi, Naomi Nagati, whatever her last name is. She's just awesome. I got it, even though they're kind of persona non grata in the Expanse community. I gotta give props to he who shall not be named, playing Alex Kamal. I can name the character, but I'm not going to give the actor's name out. But he did a great job as Alex. He, to me, so far Alex is the most like the book. From what I've seen on watching the entire series, by far the most like the book character from what I've read so far. I've only read the first book so far.
Has Leah read all the series?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So you would know, is his fate in the show at all like in the books?
No.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It's very different.
That was him being written out because of bad behavior.
Yep. But I just want to confirm whether or not there's anything in the books that was similar to how his fate was, because
there was someone who did die of a stroke like he did. But so I think they just like switched it up, and it's at a different time. But
because they kind of set it up in like this episode of that being a potential for his future. Foreshadowing. That's the word.
There's all kinds of foreshadowing going on. All kinds of foreshadowing going on. I mean, we had this very episode. There was foreshadowing to Eros when you find out the spoiler. When you find out the Grigas are gone.
Yeah.
And that's just like, I never noticed that the first time watching the show, that they hinted at it.
So much information that they're dumping on you, like and sometimes it's you're hearing a news clip in the background and they're talking about something that becomes important later. So like they brilliantly set up, because there's so much information, especially with the politics and the inners versus the outers, and then history, and the way that they convey all of this information. It's not like we're just gonna dialogue you to death. Like they really, it's just brilliant the way they throw things, and like stuff is coming in announcements on the overhead, and sometimes you have to pay attention to that because that might be something that happens later. So
I always love diegetic sources of information like radio or the PA or television screen, where you don't necessarily even have to focus on it. Just have it there or be heard, and picking up what the characters are hearing,
I'm kind of vaguely reminded of RoboCop and Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Where they had that source of what was the word I'm looking for? Propaganda always in the background.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's either like directly in your face propaganda or like kind of an aside. And just thinking about that, if they had that guy director on this show, it could have been interesting.
They did a really good job with it in Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds too, because there was news segments being heard and listened to as stuff starts breaking down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens a lot in film. When I say film, I mean TV as well. It's the ultimate form of film. I'm very much a pro TV over pro movie person.
Yeah, just something different than like constant explanation via dialogue, because that just gets old and clinky, and like it doesn't always get executed well. So when you have those create other mediums in which you can give the viewer the information that they need, that do need to know, like those nice little foreshadowing Easter eggs, it's always impressive, especially when it's well executed.
And it adds an extra layer of depth to the experience, a verisimilitude. You get to experience the world more of how the way the characters are experiencing the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Well, it kind of brings us into the
Who is your
biggest
favorite
topic. Oh, my favorite actor? I mean, we already know.
Okay, Wes Chatham.
Yeah.
Murder Snuggles boy, huh?
Definitely. In this episode.
Would you buy the plushie? Could you imagine the Amos plushie?
Oh, that would be so wonderful.
There should be an Amos plushie.
Solid.
What's the little wobblehead guys?
Yeah.
Things the Goblin hates.
Yeah. Daniel Green hates them. I can't think of what they're called now. But they're like the 3D chibis. Chibis are cute, but these things are not. God, I can't think of their name.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I had a friend who collected them.
No, I don't really have an actor that I want to call out as being worst actor of the episode. There was nothing egregious in my opinion. And unless it's just super bad, I'm not going to call it out. Unless the name's Gage, not an elf. There's a character on the Witcher named Gage, and he's an elf. And I just took issue with an elf named Gage. Nothing against the name Gage, but it's just not an elf name.
No, that's not an elf name.
So yeah, I
agree. I don't think there wasn't even like slightly subpar acting on this. Like everybody did an excellent job. They were exactly who you needed them to be in this episode. I do agree that I think Naomi was one of I also just love her so much. So there's very few episodes where I'm like, she wasn't my favorite in this episode. She's pretty much almost always my favorite.
Now, I do have a least favorite character, and that's Sadavir Ehrenreich, the Undersecretary.
Oh, well, yeah, but you're supposed to hate him.
Yeah, and the actor who plays him is so good at it, too.
Oh, he's so good. You really hate him.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Although, it is a case, second time in 2 episodes, of a character being whitewashed. Because the book, from what I understand, clearly states he's dark-skinned with a British accent. Here he's light-skinned with an American accent. And
I do think they mix things up a lot in the show, but it was one of those that the book was so well written. Like it's obviously the characters are all very diverse. So when they when they do switch them up, I like it's fine.
Well, the one that bugged me, this one I didn't know about until I was reading about the character last night. But the one that bugged me was changing Ade from a Nigerian woman to someone with the name Nygaard, so I'm thinking Dutch. You know, I'm like, why? I mean, you're good with the diversity in casting in every other way, except this one. And then this episode happened. I was like, oh, well, okay, that's twice in 2 episodes. They can do better, and they have done better. I just don't know why they didn't in this case.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I should mention that Shed from the books, we totally glossed over changes. He actually kind of got some actual meaning to his character before his fate.
Yeah.
Like we actually learned something about and care about him. Like in the books, it's like, oh, that guy just died. Oh, sorry, spoiler.
Yeah, well, I'll mark that.
Yeah,
I'll catch that one.
But it's like, you barely even knew the character in the book. Yeah, kind of glossed over. I'm like, oh yeah, he just got splattered, and then they move on. And in here, they kind of give you a little more attachment to him, so his loss actually feels more important.
Yeah, that was one benefit to that whole oxygen deprivation scene.
Yeah, when he saves
it made you, and also giving him his panic attack earlier in the episode.
Yeah,
trying to get your sympathies on him.
He goes from this like totally freaked out to this hero moment. So like you're like, yeah, he's redeeming himself. So maybe he's not such a tool.
The actor Paulo Costanzo.
So.
I originally remember seeing him in the movie The Road Trip.
Okay.
Followed by 40 Days for a Night, and then finally the TV show Royal Pains.
I haven't seen any of those. I'll have to look at his IMDb to see if I recognize anything. He does look familiar to me, though, but maybe just from when I watched it 6-7 years ago.
He reminds me of the one guy from American Pie, but it is not him.
Okay.
There's a shorter, dark-haired guy that kind of looks similar to him.
Yeah.
They have the same facial structure.
I like him trying to face. I did get a kick in the first episode of him trying to sell joints a couple of different times. I was like, that's my boy right there. I liked him. Too bad I know he's dying, but that doesn't stop me from getting attached to a character.
You said he was selling joints?
Yeah.
100% with a character from his other movies and TV shows?
Yeah, I'm not. He does seem like a pothead.
Right. Anyone else have any other character, worst actors, best actors in the episode? Or
I just love them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention it until now, but you always gotta mention show Ragdashlu because Cad Swain. I mean, Christian Avarasala is just awesome.
That is such a Freudian slip right there.
Yeah, that was an accident. So yeah, God, I can't. I hope that's what happens. I hope that's what's really what Rafe has in mind for her. She just can't possibly play any. There's not a role I can imagine more perfect for her.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know if this is too off topic, but do you think it's too similar to God, I always end up wanting to say Avendasora, but I know that's wrong. But yeah, her character on The Expanse, do you think Cad Swain and
the Iron Will aspect they're strong-willed women, and that's they don't brook no bullshit, so yeah, I think that those traits describe the two of those characters big time.
Yeah,
given her the political nature and Expanse for that actor, in Wheel of Time, like Cad Swain makes sense but for politics, not so much.
So before we move on to the themes, I've got a question for you guys. Do you think Miller is right about Julie Mao? That does he have her personality, her way of thinking right? Has he analyzed her correctly, or do you think he's way off base and just cuckoo? Which we know he is cuckoo, but
But he was always cuckoo.
yeah.
I think he has her right, because he is, in spite of his reputation, he is a very good detective, and he picks up on all these nuances, and then we do in later seasons get to know her a little bit better. So I won't spoil that, but yeah, so you do pick up on some other aspects of her later on. Wow, there's something. Cats just want to play and make noises. So I do think he's actually correct. He might have some of the smaller details wrong. I don't know that she would ever have fallen for him. So like their, little romance might just be in his head. But I think he's pretty much got her spot. And he does. He's so intimate in her life. He's reading all of her emails and her message, or they're not called emails, but you know what I mean. He's watching these of her. He's like literally stalking her via video as she's going around the station, just watching her do all of her daily life things. So how you would not be able, it's just the way as we read books and we obsess about characters, like you get to know that character. That's exactly what he's doing with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've been wondering about that. How close he was to getting her right. Mm-hmm. You've read the whole series, so you have a much better idea, I'm sure. I've only read the first book and watched the whole series so far.
Okay.
Well, I think both Glenn and I are on the same wavelength for what we think might be going on in the background with Miller. We talked about last episode.
Yeah, I'll put another spoiler warning on this. I'm of the belief that Miller hasn't started seeing Julie yet, hallucinating Julie. I know it doesn't happen on the show until he's been on Eros. I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen in the books until he's been on Eros, which means he's been infected by the protomolecule, or not so much infected by the protomolecule, but it's telepathically linking to him, because he's now seeing Julie, who's become one with the protomolecule.
Yeah.
When he dies in season 2, that passes on to Holden, who is now seeing Miller and being told stuff Holden has no way of having known, and stuff Miller's telling him proved to be right, and that's the protomolecule trying to get to where it needs to go, doing whatever to meet its purpose. And so I think the two are the same thing, that the Miller hallucination of Julie is directly equal to Holden's hallucination of Miller.
So there's definitely the show depiction of that, and then the book depiction, because in the books he acted like he has a mental conversation that he's always having with his ex-wife. And eventually his ex-wife, who's alive and well, but he just always, I think he needs a sounding board. So even though it's still his subconscious that's responding to him, like he's constantly having that mental conversation with his ex-wife. And then in the books, it's before he goes to Eros where he starts talking to Julie Mao.
She's not saying anything back. He's seeing her, but he's not having her talk to him.
Well, she is a little bit in the books responding.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she doesn't respond until Eros.
I want to say she responded something.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It's been known to happen.
They're smiling or reacting to him. Maybe it's not an active conversation, but she seems to be encouraging.
Yeah.
And then and this is right around the time where he starts to think that maybe he's in love with her. And it does become more and more and more prolific. Like those conversations become more of conversations. They happen more often. And when they're going to the station where all the scientists are. She in the books, she's there with him the whole time, which I don't think she is in the show.
Yeah.
But that's not even until next
My
season.
recollection with the book, I mean, everything before Eros was stuff that, you know, him seeing her like just a photo or a video of her, and it's him seeing her not saying anything directly response, but just I always pictured it as him remembering something he had seen and seeing it in his mind's eye. Whereas once he's been on Eros, I think he's actually having something appear to him. And that's my idea.
Oh yeah, but in the books, it like again, even when he's on series in the books,
I'll
like
have to read it a third time.
he eventually replaces that his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah, but I just
Aspect.
when that transition all happened is where I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and listen to the book, I guess.
Well, we should probably get on to the themes here.
Okay.
Glenn, you're going first, you said?
I go always last on this one.
Last, okay.
Yes, always last
All
on this one.
Did Leia have any themes that you spotted in this episode where book kind of merged together? Yeah.
Or how one handled it and the other didn't.
I mean, not really themes per se. It's just this episode was, especially the Rosi crew, was just very different. So like the dynamics of, you know, it's not a theme, but you know, the catastrophe, you see them starting to really work together as an efficient team. Even though
so teamwork?
Teamwork, yeah, even though they're kind of at each other's throats a little bit.
So you got that with Miller.
Family.
Yeah, well, and that's what a family is. So like sometimes you want to just murder each other and the rest of the time you just love each other. So yeah.
So I had two basic themes that were kind of stood out for this episode. The biggest one was the resource scarcity issue of, you know, Holden and crew, they were dealing with, you know, oxygen.
Yeah, lack of air.
Series, I believe, was dealing with water. And they all had to do those challenges separately. I don't know that Earth had that same kind of theme going on.
Their resource lack this episode was information. They didn't have all the information they needed.
There you go. The other part is the classism, racism angle of this for theme of, you know, Belters versus Earthers, Earthers versus Martians. We had the whole segment where the guy Miller is talking to is basically saying, yeah, all the Belters are just thieves, and you know, there's crime, look towards Belters.
I won't say that about Belters, but I will say this: Earth first. 30 billion people you got to take care of.
And I like that the way that they change racism from what we identify as racism to, or you could almost say like nationalism in the sense
tribalism.
Of, yeah, or you know, like the bad versions of patriotism. And it expands out, so it's not so much how you look. There is a lot of how you look actually to it. So, but as opposed to like the color of your skin, it's the shape of your body.
Speaking of look, Miller in the shower scene. If you noticed his top four spine vertebrae.
We saw those in episode 1 too. But yeah.
Speaking the Glenn's Earth first thing, you know, spoiler, Marcos kind of helps with that.
Yeah,
taking care of 32 billion.
Yeah, I hate Marcos.
But I mean, I don't think that's how you mean take care of them, but he takes care of them.
Yeah. Not the taking care of that I'd like to see done.
But I think that's one thing that the show has done so well is those antagonists are always cast so well. And like you just really, really hate them. And they're exactly on point.
There was just something oily about Marco Anaus. And the actor especially. And I've not seen the actor in any other character or even out of character, but he just felt creepy through and through.
Apparently he really leaned into that, like when he was on the show on his Twitter. I just found out about this recently. Like he would like fans would create memes of him, like the poster or whatever, and he would just retweet it all the time. So like he was really all about being Marcos.
So you mentioned the antagonist being really cast well throughout the series. This season, the antagonist isn't a person really, it's the environment. It's space, it's whatever the hell's going on Eros. It's everything around you trying to kill you.
And don't forget the designers of the doors for airlocks, Max.
They did that just
They did that this week again too. Another sliding door airlock, and it actually was boom and starts to bounce apart before it cuts. I swear I saw it start bouncing apart after they hit in the center.
Ooh, I've never noticed that. I'll try to look for that.
Just wait till you see one of those portable doors that shoot out to a ship, and they have the sliding doors.
Yeah, I contended last week that the only practical design for an inner door for an airlock is one that opens into the ship or space station. That way, if there's a breach of the outer door, the air pressure inside will force close the door and seal itself away just by sheer force. You can't open that when the outer door is closed because you're pulling against all this atmospheric weight.
Now I want to see what they do on the space station.
The first episode, Miller throws the guy who played Death on Supernatural down into the airlock, which had a sliding door. The inner door was a sliding door. Down on the docks too. So yeah. I don't recall Tycho Station on the show, but
they don't really go outside, or they don't actively do spacewalks at Tycho. Well, they do.
I think they had a gangway. I think they had the gangway or whatever you want to call it in space, with a tube linking them. So yeah, but yeah, I don't mind, but this show tries to make a point of how scientifically accurate it is in so many ways. Yet it does that something that design-wise, such an easy change that makes absolutely no scientific sense whatsoever. So, yeah. 2 episodes now. Let's see if they continue.
So what were some themes you're thinking about, Glenn?
Well, the big one for me, I wasn't thinking air at first. I was thinking just water. But when you actually used the term earlier of resource, scarcity, and that, I'm like, yes, oxygen too, because this is like the really big one. We can't forget the fact that the crew of the night were the crew of the Canterbury, which was an ice hauler. So their very nature of who and what they've done for the last so many years also ties into the whole water scarcity, because they were taking it to series.
It's just a constant problem, making sure that there's enough water to support the general population.
And it just makes it really weird for me, because the 3 major properties that I've had going on in my head recently: Wheel of Time, Dune, The Expanse. Water, water, water. And it's like, oh wow. So not only are the Belters are Aiel Fremen. Because I've been joking with people how much, the Wheel of Time took outright from Dune. Aiel the Fremen, the Bene Gesserit, or the Aes Sedai. The Kwisatz Haderach is the Dragon Reborn. I mean, it's there. But yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, wow, 3 of the big things that I've been watching and reading, recently, all dealt with water. And I just found that interesting.
Well, just like in our reality, they're talking about water scarcity in our future.
Yeah.
Freshwater scarcity, that is.
Y'all ain't getting Michigan's Great Lakes. No.
We'll just put oil in that first. So.
No. Oh no. You Minnesotans.
Well, water's always been settlements built up because of proximity to accessible fresh water.
Yeah.
That's why Salt Lake City is where it is. It's because in that arid area, that's the only place where they could get fresh water.
Well, create fresh water.
Or create, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I mean, this kind of a thematically, scarce episode. I mean, there's themes there, but it's just all been talked about. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and in the books around this time, as we discussed, like they didn't have. It was more of a time issue, waiting for the Donager to come get them, and food. Having enough food became an issue.
Yeah.
So there was another resource scarcity in this snapshot of time in the books.
Well, in the books, they're probably eyeing Amos there for a while.
Yeah.
But if they can hold him down long enough,
Oh, he's always a tasty snack.
One thing that
Sorry, wrong show. This isn't Threefold Talk.
one thing I wanted to bring up earlier that I didn't like. I totally forgot about it. I didn't like the change of motivation for Holden on sending out the message about what they saw, what happened to the Cant, and the conclusions they reached. In the books, he's like everybody else. He's exactly what every single person in the solar system but him realizes. He's a dumb asshole. Everybody in the rest of the solar system knows this, except for Holden. On the show, with him doing this in response to the Donager heading right for them as their distress beacon call, and then thinking it's the Martians at this point, because it almost makes him justified. Makes you be like, okay, that was a dumb move, but I understand why you did it. And we shouldn't have that, I don't think. It gives him a legitimate motivation to send out that signal, that message.
So I seem to recall in the book there was something like he sent out one message originally. Yeah. And then when the two ships were coming towards me, he sent out another message as a don't kill us, because if you do, you're going to, sink your own ship. I can't remember exactly what the two messages were, but I want to say one was like, we were a crew on this ship, save us. And then the second message was,
in the book,
it was the Martians. So, if they capture us and you don't see from us, it was definitely the Martians.
In the books, because I just listened to it a couple hours ago, they sent out the message saying, all right, the Cant got blew up by what seems to have been a stealth ship. We found this transponder, this fake transponder distress signal on this ship that had an MCRN battery in it.
Yeah.
He did not say he thought Mars did it. I will agree with him on that. He did not say Mars did it. But it was just a stupid call, giving that part out in the first place. And then they got a message back from the corporate headquarters saying, screw you, you just screwed up. You're
we're not gonna help you.
And so the second message sent out was a message addressed to the Donager, but set out on broadcast. And he did that basically for what this message here is for.
Just because he wasn't certain what the outcome was going to be, and he didn't want everybody to get thrown in a dark hole and not be seen again.
He wanted the solar system to know that they were, being taken in.
They took the motivation for the second message and applied it to the first message and got rid of the second message entirely. I don't like that they did it that way. I like there being little justification.
I think the time compression and with everything just in the show happening so fast, like there weren't those weeks that they had that they could survive. Again, that doesn't translate well.
I did like that they got rid of that corporation side of it, because it just was kind of irrelevant.
I guess
we see him once and then they never hear from him again.
Yeah, and in the books, I feel like especially like they could get more into the corporate side, like corporate overlords don't care about us. It was just an additional theme that didn't need to be added into an already information-rich show. So they're already throwing so much shit at you.
And we get corporate greeting in season 2.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that happened in the episode that I do not understand. It's a little throwaway scene, but why? What knocked the wrench out of Holden's hand? I rewound it, played it frame by frame. There's no skidding on the screen to try to show like a micrometeorite hit it. I swear I hear a ting there just as he lets go, but he for no reason seems to let go. And even if he had let go, just like that, it would have sat there like this. He would have had to something had to hit it for it to get energy to go back.
Haven't you just accidentally chucked something across the room by accident?
No. When I chuck something across the room, it's on purpose because you pissed me off. Oh, I mean, yeah, tossing a ball to somebody. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. No, I don't understand why it just all of a sudden accelerated out of his hands. It didn't make any sense to me.
Because it's Holden and he does dumbass shit all the time.
It's an extremely.
It could have been Amos. You have a little sniper rifle there, but.
Well, I think we're all set for the episode. We're not doing any scores anymore until the end of the season. So next time you come back, which we will be having you back for episode 10, the season finale, then we'll do scores for the season.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
This is fun.
I did have fun. It was great talking with you.
Absolutely.
Next week, we will be discussing what episode, Max? What's the name?
Oh, I always forget to check this out.
He's the guy in the chair. That's why I gave him that name on his nameplate, the guy in the chair.
Damn it. I'm on season 6.
See, I expected you to have this already. I know the episode intro, and you do the episode ending.
Remember the can't.
Remember the can't. Episode 103. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a message or leave a comment, a like, and a subscribe. And don't forget to be awesome.